Ceren Bagatar es cofundadora y directora creativa de Code 21, Climate Solutions Design, donde colabora con organizaciones en los sectores de salud, alimentación, social y energía, trabajando por futuros climáticos positivos. Es una creativa con 20 años de experiencia, principalmente en sistemas de salud. Fue líder senior de diseño en Philips Healthcare en Eindhoven, Países Bajos. Y en los últimos años ha estado explorando nuevas formas de diseñar soluciones climáticas al fusionar el pensamiento sistémico con el diseño. So we have an auditorium full of very eager students to learn from you. I think we will learn a lot from you today. We will start with Helle and then with Ceren. Let's just start.
Right, everyone. Thank you for waking up and spending time on sustainability today. So I'd like to talk about what circular design is at Philips. And I want to talk about circularity in the roles that I have and that I've had. So I've been with Philips for 16 years. I have a background as a product designer, and that's also how I started within Philips. And that's how I got to know both Vanessa and also Ceren. I've had multiple different roles in the years at Philips. I even did a period where I was a material color and also trend designer. I worked as a strategic designer, and currently I'm in a kind of transition role of getting a new title. But in the years that I worked as a service designer, I also started working on the circular economy. I've done that for the past 6 years. And for almost 2 months now, I have been working in a separate group, so not within the group of designers, but in the group that's called Group Sustainability Office. It's a group of more than somewhere between 30 and 50 people working purely on sustainability. And to give you an idea of what I have worked on and what we have worked on within Philips on circularity, I will mention a few projects that I've done throughout the years. We have worked a lot about getting a community, so getting our designers to understand what they need to do. So we created circular walkings, which are very similar to what we're doing right now, putting people together in a room and talking about the topic of circularity. We've identified what we call circular champions, so having colleagues that know more about the topic and help us to drive and to scale the topic in our projects. We've done loads of trainings of designers, but also other employees to understand and let them know what they can do about circularity. We've held webinars, which is not only for designers, but which are meetings across the whole of Philips. We've done different kinds of communication on our intranet, giving inspirational and actionable posts. We have created what we call sustainability learning journeys, and you'll see them on the right. One-pagers that target all the different design disciplines with links to tools, to trainings, to where they can find more knowledge. So every designer understands what he or she needs to do in their specific role. We're also teaming up externally. So outside Philips, we work with, for example, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and we have a big network of other companies. We also support new circular workforce. So you're also the future workforce. So we have interns coming in working with different topics of circularity. And I want to evolve a little bit more and elaborate more on what kind of different things a designer could do, because you may wonder, what can I do in my role and as a designer? So I have, in my previous years, I've been in a circular design team in the design department where we worked on enabling a circular transformation of Philips, both in the design organization and outside. Now I'm in the middle where I'm awaiting my new title. It may change, it may not. And I'm still working on how we can help the company to transition, how we can help our designers, our design organization, but also other employees. And I have a focus now on circular design. But what you also see is so those two are examples of an organizational and more a transformative role as a designer. But we also have designers doing a more traditional approach where product designers are designing for repairable and modular products. I'm just mentioning a few examples. Or a material designer that will design with sustainable materials. Or a UI designer UX designer that designs for low energy or optimized usage of a product. So why are designers so important in the circular economy? I wasn't aware until a few years ago that actually 80% of a product's environmental footprint is determined in the design phase. Yeah, so that's why designers are so important. We can actually, as designers, influence up to 80% of a product's environmental footprint. So we have a very important role to play within companies to make this right, to make sure that the environmental footprint is as low as possible. Now, very quickly, what is circularity in Philips? Philips' purpose is to improve people's health and well-being, and we aim to improve the lives of 2.5 billion people by 2030. Now, what's important for us as a health tech company is, and I'll explain how you should read this diagram. Actually, what this diagram is showing is that all these little dots are countries, and what we're traditionally doing when we do make people healthy is that we use a lot of planet resources. So what we want to do is that we still want to make all these countries and all these people healthy, but we want to keep the impact on the environment and the resources of our planet really low. And actually, right now we're consuming too much of our planet resources. We're using 1.7 planets. We don't have that many planets. And more than 90% of used materials go to waste every year. This has impact on climate change, loss of biodiversity, and also on waste and pollution. I haven't talked too much about what circular economy is, so I also want to end my presentation by talking about the linear economy and the difference with the circular economy. I have, and maybe you have also, been in the mode of taking something, making something, and disposing something by buying things and then disposing it when it's broken or worn out. But the circular economy is all about using less, using longer, and use again. So we've got these goals within Philips to make sure, and I've highlighted two. We want by 2025 to have 25% of our sales coming from circular products, services, and solutions. And we also want all our products that we put on the market in 2025 to be designed in line with what we call our eco-design requirements. And these are our ways of defining circularity. We target energy, substances, packaging, and circular design within our eco-design requirements. And circular economy is all about doing more with less. Here you see this take, make, and waste linear approach in the dark blue. And you see the circular approach of use less, use longer, and use again in all these kind of loops. So think about upgrades, repairability, refurbishment, and recycling as one of the last steps. Eco-design, as I mentioned, focus around energy, packaging, substances, and circularity. So using low energy, minimize the weight and the volume of packaging, phasing out hazardous substances, and in circularity, designing with minimal materials, sustainable materials, making sure we can disassemble, repair, recycle, and have long usage of our products. So thanks for listening. I hope we have time for Q&A. You can also ask questions in the chat if that is possible. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Ceren.
Hi again. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to your early morning conference session. So I will talk a little bit of also what I do. And what I do is I'm trying to deliver sustainability by design. Who I am is I'm a multidisciplinary designer in the domains of healthcare and consumer goods. And I also work as a sustainability strategist, helping businesses to transition to climate positive futures. And I'm also guest instructor in various universities, helping students to integrate sustainability in their design projects. My career started in 2002, back in Istanbul, Turkey. And I actually started as a jewelry designer in the very early days, and then slowly switched to lighting design, went to Umeå Institute of Design. That's where I met Vanessa, and to have this lifelong relationship, a friendship with her. Then I switched to being an experienced designer for advanced systems. That is, advanced systems being complex products and solutions such as healthcare, public transport, and such. And later in the towards the end, I became a design strategist. In 2020, I took a sabbatical to study sustainability strategy. And since then, I've been also working as a sustainability strategist. So what I do is, yeah, everything is fine. Okay, I'll continue. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to deliver sustainability that is meeting the needs of today without compromising the future of the new generations and the planet by design, through design, using not only human-centered design, but making it a planet-centered design and fostering sustainable development and bringing value for the people and the planet. Around the same time in 2020, I did start a collaboration with my colleague Michiel Cornelissen, and we founded Code 21, Climate Solutions Design. And here in Code 21, we do climate positive innovation and strategy. Our challenge is decoupling the business revenue from the increase in resources. And in terms of resources, meaning like raw materials and energy and such, and also reducing our environmental impact, and yet still ensuring our competitive advantage as a business. And how can we do that within the planetary boundaries is our challenge. In Code 21, what we do is we're helping businesses to find new opportunities and integrate climate solutions in their sustainable new businesses. Also, we do work as also coming up with design strategies to lower the carbon footprint of our products and solutions and design sustainable products and solutions as well. Some of the things that we have been doing so far is we did a trial project with Philips before, and Helle also participated. Thank you, Helle, for that again. And then we worked with a food company, General Mills, in the United States. We helped a museum in the Netherlands to design their exhibition in a very low carbon, with a low carbon footprint. Started to establish a resilient food network in Eindhoven. Also worked with a regenerative community in India to understand what type of opportunities they can integrate in terms of climate solutions, and co-wrote the first global impact report of a solar cell company in Sweden. So that was a little bit of myself, my background, and what I do. And now I would like to talk about a little bit some important topics that I think is important to also share with you. First of all, why climate positive? Why climate positive? Because the climate change is the defining crisis of our time, and it is happening even more quickly than we think. What we know so far is that there is a 50% probability that the planet will heat 1.5 centigrades, and 67% probability that it will heat even more, that is 2 centigrades, until the year 2100. Which would increase in climate disasters, which would increase the climate disasters, and that's what we are already seeing with all these fires and the floodings and the storms already, unfortunately. It will decrease the biodiversity, it will cause loss of biodiversity, and it will become the biggest threat, and it is already our biggest threat to humanity. What we need to do is we are trying to accomplish this 1.5 degrees Celsius increase, and it is sad because we can't actually stop the warming anymore, so we can only limited to 1.5 degrees. And what we usually think is that it's a very direct route, like it's a very we have a starting point and we reach there, but it's actually not the case. What we don't see is that our maneuverability, our place to maneuver is actually narrowing down. So there will be more emission cuts, there will be more legislations and limitations. And we will also face more climate disasters in time. So our place to maneuver is getting narrower and narrower in our route to reach 1.5 degrees. At some point, we need to start being sustainable and integrate sustainability in our lifestyle. And then, only then, we can adapt and gain resilience. And then in the future, hopefully, we will finally reach to that climate positive lifestyle, and finally we will have a happy ending, and I hope we will all see that those days here. So a little bit of information, or maybe the things that I think are important for designers, is how do we integrate sustainability in our product design and product development processes? First of all, it would be nice to know, it would be good to know what are the principles for ecological sustainability and what are the principles for the social sustainability. And then how do we integrate life cycles thinking and also focus on symbiotic value chains. The ecological sustainability principles are looking at how do we minimize our contribution to degradation of the planet? So when we design a product or when we are designing a solution, we need to first ask questions, the three questions. Are we using any substances that are mined from below the Earth's crust? That could be the fossil fuels, that could be mined minerals or mined materials. And do we cause any leakages in the extraction of these products, of these materials? The second question we need to ask to ourselves is, are we using any substances that are not natural, that are not existing in the nature by themselves, but we're producing them by humans? And those substances could be foreign and persistent in the ecology, in the nature, and they can also accumulate in time and cause toxicity, such as these forever chemicals that we now know further and further. And microplastics, for example, is also another example to that. Then the third question we need to ask is, are we causing any degradation of the nature? Like if we are using bio-based materials, for example, are we causing deforestation? Are we causing any mismanagement of an ecosystem? Or how are the products that we are producing or designing are going to have the end of life? What's going to happen to them? Are we causing any garbage dumps? Or are they ending in the landfills? So these are the ecological sustainability principles. And then the other sustainability aspect is the social sustainability, because if we don't have social sustainability, we will never gain ecological sustainability. To be able to get there, we need to be also socially sustainable. The first thing is when we design and develop products is health. Do we again cause any structural obstacles in the society to people's health and safety? Are we using any sources or resources from places where they suppress people's influence, or suppressing the expression of people? Are we again promoting with the use of our supplies, or are we promoting with the products that we are delivering the lack of education or the false understanding, false beliefs? Are we causing any impartiality, either with the products that we design or with the supplies, again, that we use? And do we also, again, promote lack of clarity in a society? Do we promote any alter meaning making? are we transparent enough with the products that we produce? So these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves: the transparency, clarity, impartiality, and such. So those are the principles of sustainability. And once we ask those, then the third topic I wanted to focus on was how do we integrate life cycle thinking? And this is pretty much actually overlapping what Helle also has talked about. Here, the question I would maybe add is when we think of a life cycle of the products and the solutions that we design, we need to think of what are the inputs, what do we depend on, but not only as materials, as also the society. Who are working to produce my product? Where are the factories located? What are the social systems in these places? Then what is the output? What do we deliver? Both to the society as a service, as a product, but also as a material itself. Again, what is left out? What is thrown away, or what is returned back to the loop? So this is, again, what we need to think about when we design and develop products. One example is maybe, this is a very common topic, the fashion system, and it's a very hot topic too. Like when we design clothing, for example, it could be any shirt or anything, even a towel. We need to think about the materials extraction, then the making, the factories, and the selling points, the retail experience, but also the use of the products as well. Usually, the greenhouse gas emissions, you can already see that the majority of it actually happens in the making of the materials of the clothing apparel. But also a very large portion happens in the use phase. Just a little bit of a focus into that. Like, for example, in the making, the synthetic materials are using fossil fuels themselves, and they cause chemical pollution, hazardous gas emissions, toxic solid waste. But also the cotton, for example, is a very water-dependent material, cotton farming. So again, if it's a farming, if it's a material created in the farming, then again, we need to make sure that are there pesticides in use? Is there any nitrogen loading that we're causing? Then the factories that these materials are brought together, and the very making of the clothing apparel where it happens, there are dyes, very aggressive chemicals that are used. So again, the question is, what type of materials, what type of processes are used in the making of these products? In the coming to the retail and the use phase, the majority of the clothing apparel, again, after if they're not being sold, the leftover is again ending in the landfills or they're burned. So again, how do we make sure that the leftover materials, if they're not sold, what happens to them? How do we design a value chain that we make sure that there's no product that ends in the landfill? And again, how do we make sure that we create a transparent information and a very good information explaining how the product should be used, how many times it could be washed, for example. A very simple example is wool, for example. The wool sweaters, they actually lose their characteristic if they are washed too often. You need to aerate and then put it out. So do you also make sure, do you also inform the users in how to care for these products? So these are the things that you can think of when you're designing and developing products. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about was thinking in symbiotic value chains. And that is especially when you design for professional products or healthcare systems and other maybe more complex systems, it's not only the end users who are your only stakeholders. You have to think of all the stakeholders that are involved in the value chain, like your suppliers, the brand itself, the users, all of them need to have a value. You need to create value for all of them so that they get into these long-term partnerships and create a more sustainable ecosystem for all of them. And again, one very quick example to this is on the top hand, you can see what happens to on the supplier end to a product, to a medical product, and then at the bottom end you see what happens to the medical product from the brand and the user side, starting from the front end innovation to production, the delivery, the use, the maintenance, and then the end of life, and what happens after the end of life. Is it going to be refurbished? Is there going to be a parts recovery? Are there going to be, again, materials recycling? So you need to think of all of those, and you need to think of how do you integrate the suppliers, the brand, and the user all together into this enablement of this whole life cycle, the value chain, sustainable value chain. So this was what I wanted to talk about very briefly, very shortly. Thank you very much. And I give the microphone back to Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Helle and Ceren, for this really super interesting presentations. I think for us, I mean, you both being experts in this field, and we as teachers know these topics, but I think especially for students, I think this is like a new world opening. And what we also see is that we need to go as designers much further into this systemic thinking, this value chains, this complexity of the life cycle of products, which is, I think, something that in both presentations was really key. So maybe the first question for you both, we don't have so much time left, but let's try to do at least two questions. One question was, what do you think is the future for a designer focusing on sustainability? I mean, we saw in Helle's presentation how a designer can really make a change within a really big company and be like a key a person moving things forward. In your case, Ceren, it's like a consultancy that is trying to assess other companies to move forward in this direction. So what do you think? Here we have students, right? And the students are the future of our world. You have a responsibility, guys. So what would you say is how do you see the profession in the future in this field? What key issues are going to be important?
I'll make a bold statement. I don't think there is a future for a designer if you don't focus on sustainability. I think it's a must. I think we need it. I know that you're needed. And I think that as I shared a little snippet that there will be new roles for designers. There will be the traditional role working on a product, implementing circularity, but you'll see, like Ceren is doing, she's moving into maybe a new kind of boundaries for designer, being a strategist, more looking into the organization, the strategy, challenging the, let's say, the methodologies that we use. So I think there are multiple opportunities for a designer, and I think we need to have sustainability integrated in design because of what also Ceren talked about. It has to be in there. So the future is bright for designers that will go into the direction of sustainability for sure.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what Helle, you were saying, what I was also thinking of. There is this very traditional role that the designers can still continue doing, and that is enabling the eco-design, the circularity, all these sustainability principles in the products and the solutions that they're designing. But my personal experience is that sustainability can't happen if you work in silo and by yourself. You need to co-design and co-create, and you need to involve and become the bridge. So the future for the designers is, I think, going to be the bridge between different functions and different disciplines, because every discipline has its own vision of sustainability. What they're lacking is maybe communicating and doing things all together. So the designer's role could be bringing all these different disciplines and different stakeholders together and creating value, finding value for all of them all together.
Oh, they're clapping.
Yeah, we can't hear.
Thank you. Thank you. And maybe second question, what do you think we should focus on here at Mexico's design school? We are going to have like a new study plan soon. We are going to soon be working on that. And now we have sustainability as a key issue, but it's not like the main focus. It's like an add-on. So maybe what do you think as a school, what topics should we focus on in this area?
And Vanessa, is your question whether you should focus on the social aspect or more the climate impact, or is that your question? Or
how can we integrate that in the lessons, or should we focus on certain methods?
I think I would try and fit it to the structure that you already have. If you have, and because I think, as Ceren says, it's quite systemic. So I would try and just integrate it in, let's say you do a session around product design, then you discuss what are the product design related aspects of circularity. You see that they go beyond product design. If you talk about, I don't know, entrepreneurship and business cases, talk about the business cases for circularity. If you talk about, I don't know, give me another example of one of the classes you give, and I'll try and let you know. But I would try and integrate it in the structure that you already have, so it doesn't become an add-on, but it gets integrated.
I agree on that too. One thing I think works well is also the limitation, knowing the limitations in terms of the legislations, the future regulations regarding sustainability. For example, one thing that we were just talking today with Helle was this EU regulations. Under the EU regulations, there is this request for some products today, and then in the future from more products, to have a digital product passport. So this comes as a regulation, but the designer's role could be looking at these limitations and regulations and finding opportunities there to come up with new solutions, new services, and to be prepared. So when I studied in the year 2002, we were studying more like mechanical elements, production methodologies, like industrial product methodologies, and on all these what happens in the factory, for example. So maybe similar to these courses, it would be nice to know what are the regulations and legislations in the future, and then already thinking ahead and being prepared for that too.
Yeah, I think that's also really key what you mentioned. Back in 2002, sustainability was not really on the radar. I mean, at least now there has been some progress, but it took a long time. I don't know, now it's 6 p.m. at your place. I'm sorry about the technical issues. I don't know if you have a few more minutes for questions from the audience, and we also understand if you have another meeting or...
I have time, don't worry.
Okay, thank you so much. So maybe the audience has some questions.
Hi. My question is, how do you start working on sustainable design? Like how
to start?
Was your beginning in this journey of sustainable in design?
Yeah, I think first you need to understand, I would say, understand the principle of sustainability. So find somewhere where there's the knowledge that you need. And then I think actually the example that Ceren showed, and that's also a little bit how I got into it, doing this end-to-end thinking and lifetime, or how do you call it, Ceren? Life cycle thinking and mapping. It really helps to understand the width and the complexity of it. So I think maybe making a life cycle flow like she showed really gives you a good understanding and will take you through all of the different loops that I talk about. You will touch upon manufacturing, you'll touch upon business model creation, you'll talk about materials, how that goes, you could talk about the social aspects, because then you get a very big and complex or rich idea about what this content is about. And I think that's a great start to get you into the depth to start with. But get some background understanding of sustainability first. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, life cycle thinking is the starting point. And when you think of the life cycle thinking, then you can already start questioning, how do I extend the life of my product, of my solution? Then you can think of the service engineers, how is it serviced, how is it upgraded? And then you can already start coming up with some design solutions. For example, that is making the service engineer's job really easy, or upgrading a product very easy. That becomes a very interesting character of the product itself, of the solution itself too. So life cycle thinking is a good starting point. And think of all the stakeholders, not only the end users. If it's a professional product, there's a final end user, but also there's a service engineer who is going to take care of that product, or who is going to doing the installation of this product. Then you can also already think of all these different stakeholders, people who are going to be integrated in the making and the using.
Yes, I think that's a really good answer, because we have tried to implement these life cycle assessments, but maybe we should focus on more methods, make it really visual, like Helle says, and we should start with that, right? Like maybe in the first years of the students. I don't know, is there another question from our students?
Who do you think we can implement the circular designing as students in our projects or in our university?
Yeah, so Philips has defined these eco-design principles, and they're actually looking into also getting them approved via the European Union. So in Europe, I don't know when they become, how do you say, official, but I think it's about also thinking very logically. If you think about the principles of using less, using longer, and use again, think about what is needed to do it. If a product needs to be used for a long time, upgraded for a long time, and repaired, you need to make the product very accessible. You need to be able to take it apart. I have a Fairphone next to me. I can simply take it apart. There's modularity in there, so I can take out parts. If something breaks down, I don't have to throw out my whole phone. I can repair it. So I would suggest that you look at the principle for circularity, if that's what you want to focus on, and think very logical about what you need to do, how you need to design to get to there.
Hi, my question is how we can how we can combine people to participate and use this new circular thinking in their life.
And can you? Sorry, who are the people you like to get together? All the stakeholders? Is that what you meant?
How to integrate the participants, or come up with or create the co-creation with all of them is the question, right? I would say start with the needs, what each stakeholder's need is. Like, that's the easiest way to start with. Like, if I'm talking to, let's say, a manufacturer, then I should just ask them, what are their bottlenecks? What are the challenges that they're going through? If it's the service engineer, again, what are the challenges that they're going through? So learn the challenges and then after learning them, you can maybe, with these small talks, after learning all these challenges and bring them all together, then you can maybe bring all of them together in one place and then try to come up with solutions. And sometimes maybe one's problem could be answered by the other participants' solution. So you need to bring the different people in the same room together, but you need to be prepared for it first, like understand each one of those people's challenges. Helle, do you have?
If I can add to it, I think what is also important is a little bit what Ceren and I did. We told you a storyline of what the problem is, that we're using too much resources, that we'll get climate change, that we'll get loss of biodiversity, that we'll have social problems. Ceren also mentioned that there are regulations coming up. So painting a picture of what's ahead of them also helps next to the needs, because some people are simply not aware. They might have the motivation, but they're not aware of things happening. So I think you need to kind of introduce some people to the topic, and people will be on different maturity levels. Some will be open and ready, and some people will need a bit more messaging and more communication and more, let's say, communication before they're ready to act. So I would combine those two things.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because before, circularity and sustainability used to be understood as philanthropy, like as something that we need to be sustainable because it's good for the planet and for the people. Now it's not the case. We need to be sustainable because it is regulated. And if we don't do it, then we will have to pay for it. And then we won't exist in the future if we don't become sustainable with the things that we do. So that's also very good, maybe starting point to threaten some of the people. Like, have you heard of these regulations? Because it's going to come and catch you at some point, find you at some point. Yeah, exactly. So you need to also make sure that they know that you are aware of this, these future threats for their businesses, and then you're prepared before them.
I think that's something really interesting with the regulations, because I think you are one step ahead than countries like ours, Mexico. I put one example with the trash disposal. Yeah. In Europe, it's very regulated, and like you say, if you don't put your trash out in the exact day, if you don't separate the trash truck will not take it, and you will be stuck with your trash, and then you're in big problems. And in Mexico, we have started in the city to separate the garbage. I think in 2017 we started, and the people are still not really compliant to that because there is no consequence. So I think it's a very interesting topic that you mentioned, because it's in the end you do it because there are regulations, and I think that's really key. I think we should, because here it will take longer in Mexico. Maybe one question for you guys is, what do you do with countries like ours where there are not so many regulations, and it's the whole life cycle is kind of like a mess, like mixed, the trash gets mixed. Yeah. What would the strategy be there as a designer working in a system that is not so regulated?
Maybe circularity is already the starting point, circularity principles and the circular economic principles. And one of them is easy to recycle and disassemble. Like, maybe the first thing you need to do is making sure that you don't use material blends altogether, so that it's just one type of material, so that the user can just throw that to the designated place. So that's the maybe simplest, the simplest step I can think of. What do you think, Helle?
Yeah, I think by actually maybe going back to the previous question, this is not a problem for Europe. This is not a problem for Mexico. This is a problem for our world and our planet. So we need to get everyone on board. And what you can show in what I talked about, this communication, show what's happening in Europe or in countries that are ahead. Say we're lacking behind. We cannot not contribute, because we all need to make an effort to get to the goals. One country can solve it and be climate neutral or climate positive is not going to solve the problem. We need to get to the common planetary goal of making sure that our planet is safe for the future. And I would say, take it along in your private life. Try and be a little bit of an activist and try and reach out to, let's say, producers of the products that you already interact with, the phones that you own, or the beauty products, the makeup, the bikes that you, if they're not sustainable, go back to them and say, I want to be able to repair my product. And they will start listening, and you will start to gain confidence that you as a person, as a designer and a private person can do something. Reach out to politicians, reach out to companies and say that you want sustainability. And at a certain moment, you'll see that other people are doing the same, and you'll be encouraged and you'll be empowered, and you'll believe that although that the people around you are not maybe moving as fast, you will contribute and change will happen. So it's about starting. Just do it. That's the best thing to do. Just start somewhere. Do something. Whatever is within your context, whatever you like to do, try and think and implement sustainability, whether it's privately or professionally. It's a start, and it'll get you started, and others will follow. And don't be afraid. Just do it.
Thank you. So I think if there's no more further questions, that would be the end of our talk. I think it has been really great to have you here with us virtually. It almost feels like you're here with us. I hope you can come sometime to Mexico and get to know the school and our students. I think as we do this new study plan, I might ask you for some tips to share with our students. Also anything you have inspiring, right? Methodologies, books that I can share with them. They are making a love signs. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We are very glad that you could be here with us today, and we keep in touch.
Definitely. Thanks. Nice meeting you all. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, this was really nice. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Ceren. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you, Helle. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.